All right, the next step in our process is to add some data entry screens. So you notice you can enter data directly into a table. So if I double click on the employee table, I could begin entering data here. Similarly, I could double click on the hours table and enter data directly into the table screen, but it isn't very user friendly. And so Access offers an object called a form that allows you to create better looking and easier to use data entry screens. So the first, I'm clicking on Form Wizard, which is a series of windows that walk you through the creation of various objects in Access. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this drop-down box and select the employee table, and then I'm going to click this double arrow to select all the fields on the table. My cat is meowing. Um, Hope you can't hear that too loudly, but I'm selecting all of the fields. I'm clicking next, and I'm just basically going to select the default properties throughout the wizard. I'm going to give it a better name than employee table. I'm going to call it employee data entry form, and then I'm going to click finish. And now I'm going to enter some data. I'm just going to enter a few records here. You can enter anything you want. Here, I encourage you to make up your own names and pay rates. And I'm going to intentionally try to break the rules. So I'm going to enter $1 per hour as the pay rate. And just to confirm that the validation rule that we set up in part 1 is actually working. So I'll change that to something valid and enter a third employee. And when I'm finished, I'll close the screen. Notice that you don't have to save when you just enter data. Now I'm going to click a Create Form Wizard to do a second form. And in this one, we want to select a combination of fields and from different tables. And the reason for that is when you're entering hours worked, it's kind of nice to see the employee name, but those are stored in two different tables. So to begin with, I'm going to click on the employee table, and I'm going to select only the first three fields individually: employee ID, last name, and first name. And then I'm going to click the drop down box, and from the hours table I'm going to select the work date and the hours worked. I'm going to click next. I'll accept the default here. I'm going to click tabular for the layout, and then I'm going to call it hours entry form and hours entry subform. Don't really worry about why something is a form and a subform. We'll talk about that later, but it's not real important right now. But we'll click finish, and then we'll enter some data. So we can see our employee up there, his ID and his name. Notice that you have the default of the hours worked. I'm going to enter a date. I'm going to test my validation rule again. I'll enter 88. I'll enter a second date. And then at the bottom of the screen, I'll scroll to the next employee using the arrows. Enter a couple of dates for that employee. And then I'll go to the third employee, and we'll just enter 1, or I'll add a second one because we're going to be adding up um, their hours worked. So once I've entered a couple records for each employee, I'm going to close